Happy January 28th. JLD here, and welcome to MicroStrategy today. In this show, we talk about Jim Cramer capitulating, and I've got a great video for you on that. We talk about another 10,000 Bitcoin being bought. We talk about Strike, STRK, MSTR's preferred share offering. Very exciting stuff. I also have two epic videos you are not going to want to miss. One is where Michael Saylor talks about why the US should buy 20% of all Bitcoin. And then he answers an audience question about tulips and Bitcoin. Are they similar? I would not want to have been that person who asked that question. And let's dive right in. As soon as I let you know that this is not financial advice, so please do your own research and make sure to comment below where you're watching from. We collect all that data, so thank you for doing just that. And now, since it's Tracker Tuesday, let's dive into MSTR-tracker.com. The stock price at close yesterday was $347.92. The S&P 500 ranking was 117 out of 500. The daily traded volume ranking was number 8 out of 499, which is crazy considering that MSTR is number 117 out of 500, but number 8 for traded volume, because like many people have been saying, this asset is trading like a $1 trillion company, not like an $85 billion company. Right now, Bitcoin price has jumped back up to almost $103,000. Our Bitcoin balance is now, yay, 471,107 Bitcoin after last week's purchase, which now means we own 2.24% of all of the Bitcoin. And of course, number 1 out of 70 for corporate holdings. Our BTC value per diluted share is $168.21. In Satoshis, that's 338,830 Satoshi. The NAV premium against diluted share is 2.068. Convertibles are coming, and this number is going to change a lot. So the total cost basis was 30 billion, an unrealized profit of 18 billion for a 60% return percentage. The Bitcoin yield year to date, 2.9%. Again, MicroStrategy's year goal was 6 to 10%, and we're already at almost 3% in the first month of the year. Talk about over delivering or I should say under promising and over delivering. That's what MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor do time and time again. And just wait till the Q4 earnings call that's coming up. It's going to be mayhem. And by the way, if you haven't already, watch this tutorial right here. I interviewed the creator of this page, Radu. We go through all of these charts in such detail. If you want to know what's happening on these Saylor charts over here, we talk about that as well. So definitely check out this tutorial. Radu put it up on the page a few weeks ago and getting a lot of great feedback from that. Let's move on to Jim Cramer saying you should own Bitcoin instead of MicroStrategy. What is it they say in that great quote? First, they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they hate you, and then you win. Well, Jim Cramer, we have won with you, my friends, and it's going to happen time and time again that we continue to win over people that never in a million years would they own Bitcoin, is a Jim Cramer quote. Well, he owns Bitcoin. He admitted it. And here is a video clip that I want to share right now with him talking just about that.
I say, if you want to own Bitcoin, own Bitcoin. I own Bitcoin. You should own Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a great thing to have in your portfolio, but not MicroStrategy. Just own the Bitcoin. That's enough.
Okay, so guess what? He's not on board with the MicroStrategy. He's not there yet. It's a step-by-step process. First, you have to understand and love and invest in Bitcoin, which finally Jim Cramer is doing, even though he wouldn't do that in a million years, of course. What's going to happen next? He's going to understand MicroStrategy. The light bulb will come on, and it will be beautiful. It'll happen for him. Let's talk about MicroStrategy acquiring 10,107 Bitcoin for $1.1 billion at 105,000 per Bitcoin, achieving a Bitcoin yield of 2.9% year to date in 2025. As of 1/26/25, we hodl 471,107 Bitcoin acquired for $30.4 billion at 64,511 per Bitcoin. Let's go. And Ben Workman shared this post. saw the preferred and missed that they bought another 10,107 Bitcoin. MSTR comes at you fast based on the dates reflected in the 8K showing 121 through 126. I will now be assuming that the ATM is part of a structured / algorithmic sales plan and thus exempt from any blackout periods. New data point collected. 4.35 billion left on the ATM and a lot of fixed income products on the way. Get ready for a ton of hashtag Bitcoin buying. Well, number one, a lot of Bitcoin buying is coming. And number two, we can pretty much safely assume that there will be no blackout period. Michael Saylor is going to keep hitting the ATM. So just be happy and rejoice that your Bitcoin yield will be going up every single week. Period. I wanted to share this post next from MicroStrategy. Since our first purchase, MSTR has increased its Bitcoin balance by 2,096% and went from 21,454 Bitcoin to 471,107. Since our first purchase, the Bitcoin price has grown approximately 838%, 11,653 to 109,350, which is the all-time high of Bitcoin. The Bitcoin accumulation speed equals 2,096 divided by 838 equals 2.5. What does that mean? MicroStrategy is growing its Bitcoin stack 2.5 times faster than Bitcoin is increasing price. Bullish all day long. Let's go to Chris, who says Saylor has now bought Bitcoin for 12 consecutive weeks with a total of 471,107 Bitcoin. MicroStrategy is now 47.1% of the way to one Nakamoto. For every $1,000 that Bitcoin increases, MicroStrategy's balance sheet increases by 471 million. And then this is just a great graphic right here. MicroStrategy watch, 12 consecutive weeks. 471,107 total Bitcoin, 47.1% of the way to one Nakamoto. And this is the balance sheet growth for every 1,000 Bitcoin gain. So when Bitcoin goes from 103,000 to 104,000, Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy's balance sheet grows $471 million. Absolute mayhem. Michael Saylor wanted to post this because MSTR today announced the launch of STRK, a new convertible preferred stock offering available to institutional investors and select retail investors. To view the inspector presentation in the video, learn more about participating, and access key details, click here. Well, I did click there, but before we get into that, I wanted to share this from Dylan LeClaire, who says MSTR announces STRK, 8% dividend preferred stock, 10-to-1 conversion into common stock, $1,000 price strike, $1,000 strike price, uncapped perpetual call option. And Bitcoin Therapist says, higher. And so this is what happens when you click into that link from Michael Saylor. You get to the proposed strike preferred stock offering. And then even more importantly, if you click the Net Roadshow, which of course I did, you get to this tab and there's a 20-minute video from Michael Saylor. You are going to want to watch this. I put this in the show notes page. It's absolutely amazing. I love it. I recommend it. Let's talk about Dan Hillary says dividends of STRK will be payable in cash, shares of Class A common stock, or a combination of both. So you're telling me I get a perpetual deep out of the money call on MicroStrategy that pays me while I hold it in MSTR shares? Pinch me, I'm dreaming. And Dan, you are not, but you are rightfully so fired up. Ben Workman says MSTR preferred stock offering. The offering is actually much smaller than I thought. Apologies for that. Shares issued 2.5 million. Issuing price $100. Total capital raised 250 million. Dividend 8%. MSTR discretionary conversion, no. Annual dividend obligation $20 million. Much lower initial offering than expected given the 2 billion messaging before. This appears to first be testing the market for the preferreds. The preferred stock can be issued in the future via an ATM vehicle similar to the common stock today. So they appear to be starting small, then they can drip it into the market with that ATM facility in the future. Very interesting. And then there's been some more posts by Ben and some audio from him as well, where he is basically saying, listen, they're testing the market. They're going to see what the demand is. It's probably going to be much higher than this initial offering. And then they're going to go to town once they have got that proven market. And then I wanted to have a last post by MicroStrategy because I thought this was a fantastic post. In 2020, the price of oil went negative for the first time in history. You were paid to buy it. Many, including myself, had it considered negative prices as something within the realm of possibility. A small prop trading outfit called the Vega Capital, based out of Essex, UK, made a reported 700 million shorting the collapse. Shout out to all the Essex boys on X. I'll put a link to a Bloomberg documentary on the Vega Capital trade in the comments below. There was nothing technical that prevented negative prices of oil. It's just that people didn't expect it to happen. Fast forward 5 years, 2025. MicroStrategy is buying up Bitcoin at a rapid rate, faster than ever before. Still, most people don't consider Bitcoin running out as within the realm of possibility. It just can't happen, they say. It will always be available for purchase, just at a higher prices. Similar to oil in 2020, there is nothing technical, which means Bitcoin must always be offered for sale at higher and higher prices. People can refuse to sell their Bitcoin for any price, just like people can refuse to buy oil for any positive price. Question your assumptions. And then here's that chart. Zoom for oil down to the negatives and then back up. And here we are now. So, very interesting stuff. And we have two classic videos, one from Michael Saylor about why the US should buy 20% of all Bitcoin. And another one, he answers a question from somebody that says, is Bitcoin like tulips? Michael, take it away.
Bitcoin is capital. Bitcoin is not currency. Gold has been used as capital. It's not currency anymore. The very simple thing that the US ought to do is they ought to sell the gold and buy Bitcoin with it and buy 20% of the Bitcoin network. It's very simple. Just swap the gold for Bitcoin. If anybody actually swaps out their treasury bills for Bitcoin, then the US is going to own it all. It's kind of like just getting Alaska or the Louisiana Purchase for free. They could pretty much have 20% of the network for free overnight just with a swap. They could even print the money. I mean, they could buy it for next to nothing. The only alternative to the treasury bill for anybody is Bitcoin. And so just do that, and Bitcoin becomes the world reserve capital network, and the US will own both sides of the equation. They'll own the currency and the capital. As a science historian, I've read 100,000 pages of history. And I think the story of history is humanity's condition was improved when we got clean water, clean food, clean air, electricity, clean power, when we got petroleum, when we got cars, when we got nuclear energy, when we got antibiotics. If you look at the plight of the humanity for thousands of years, people are dying at age 30. There's a 40% infant mortality rate because the food's dirty, the water's dirty, and they've got no hope. And when they were dying of dirty water and dirty food, they didn't know they were dying of dirty water and dirty food. We bled George Washington to death. Every rich person in the Middle Ages died of gout because they drank red wine, because they couldn't drink water because it was contaminated. And so all of these companies, if you look at the mortality rate of corporation is 99%, the average life expectancy of a company is 10 to 15 years. And you can say, well, we'll just take it for granted. Companies should only last 10 years. Just like, 40% of your kids, maybe they should just die before the age of 5 because that's just the way God willed it. Or maybe we should just die at age 31, which is the life expectancy in Elizabethan England. But the point is, they didn't die because they were genetically predisposed to die. They died because they had dirty food, dirty water, dirty energy. They worked themselves to death. And the best thing that ever happened to humanity was the passage of technology. So Satoshi put his finger on one observation. The observation is the money is corrupt and dirty and it's defective. And you want me to show you how it's defective? I tell you the story, 1,000 stories of people being murdered for their money. Every single story of Jews fleeing from authoritarianism. Every story in Germany of the Protestants, the Catholics murdering each other. Everybody that came to America, they came because they're fleeing for property rights. The entire history of the human race is littered with tragedy because people never had proper economic energy A type 1 diabetic can't store organic energy. They will eat themselves to death. Fat is the way you store organic energy. Somehow, over the course of hundreds of millions of years, mammals figured out how to store organic energy, and they had fat cells. We as humans have not had the ability to store economic energy properly. We tried with gold, it never quite worked. I could give you 100 examples of it not quite working. I can give you 1,000 examples of hyperinflation dating back to 500 BC of money not quite working. For the first time in human history, we have invented a technology that allows a human to tightly bind economic energy to their person, or for a corporation to tightly bind economic energy to the corporation. What it means is you don't have to suffer an early, painful economic death. And you can tell me, oh, that doesn't matter, but I would point to everyone in Africa. I would point to all of the misery in Cuba and North Korea and Venezuela. I would point to the misery in the aftermath of hyperinflationary incidents that took place in Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, Russia. I could go on forever. There are literally 100,000 pages. Read The Story of Civilization by Will Durant, and you will find 1,000 examples of currency collapse and economic misery. And this person, Satoshi, offered us this gift. The gift is you get to own your own money and no one can take it away from you. You get to keep it, right? You get to keep your life force. And what do I think will happen? I think that companies' life expectancy on the Bitcoin standard goes from 10 years to 30 years to 40 years to 100 years. And I think living longer is a good thing. And I think families' life expectancy, is dramatically increased. I could do the simple math for you. The half-life of money in gold is 30 years. Gold debases at 2% a year, 30, 35 years. The half-life of money in Bitcoin is forever. 0% inflation makes your money last forever. So I think that some people will not appreciate it and they won't get it. That's okay. You don't have to buy it. Lots of people won't buy it. By the way, I do think that if you ask how many Americans own it or care, they just tipped the election in favor of Trump. I think they care. I think the crypto lobby is the #1 political force today. So I do think there's a lot of people that do agree with me. They do get it. There are $800 billion to $1 trillion of real money that has been invested in the network. You can trace it if you like, but that doesn't mean it's for everybody. Everyone didn't install electricity in Florida, air conditioning, right? Right, that's new. All sorts of technologies don't get embraced for 30 years, and this won't. But I would say clean money is just as important as antibiotics. It's just as important as fat. It's just as important as clean electricity, right? So that's my answer to you. It's technology. It makes the world a better place. And I think that for 1 billion human beings that are destined to economic misery, for them it's the matter of life or death. You're not one of them, right? We'll stipulate. Lots of Americans aren't one. But drop yourself in Nigeria, where it's illegal to own the dollar, where the naira is going to zero, and then try to give some money to a person you want to help in Nigeria or capitalize a company in Nigeria, and tell me how you're going to do it. Because generally the answer is, well, we just don't. Everybody stays poor, every company fails, and all the economies collapse. And that's the same answer as a type 1 diabetic. We just don't. We just die. And, I think insulin to a type 1 diabetic is Bitcoin to an African. It's a useful thing. Thank you.
And there you have it, my friends. Another episode of MicroStrategy today. Remember, this is not financial advice. And please comment below where you're watching from. I love those interactions. I love that data. And I love those likes. I wanted to share the fact that just like Michael Saylor, I seem to love to buy at the top. I am DCAing every single day of the trading year of 2025, $210. Here's my receipt for yesterday, $350. Go, John. That got me 0.6 share of MicroStrategy in the $210 amount. That was at 10:13 a.m. Eastern time. And I will continue dollar cost averaging every single day of 2025. And every Saturday, I show you my entire DCA dollar cost average results in my portfolio tracker. So we'll have some fun with that. And going forward, you know this, there is no second best.
What's the second best? There is no second best.